This is in the Guardian. It says here that cannabis is a wonder drug capable of radically transforming the lives of very sick people. Tests sanctioned by the government are proving far more successful than doctors, patients, and cannabis campaigners ever dared hope. Taking the drug, still illegal for doctors to prescribe in England, has allowed a man previously so crippled with pain he was impotent to become a father, a woman paralyzed by multiple sclerosis to ride a horse for the first time, and a man who couldn't sit up in a chair on his own to live without a carer. And until now, claims of the benefits of the drug for certain conditions have been anecdotal. But the preliminary results of the UK government trial started in the year 2000, folks. Suggest that 80% of those taking part have derived more benefit from cannabis than any other drug, many describing it as miraculous, making it almost inevitable, wrong, that the government will bow to public pressure, wrong, and legalize the cultivation of cannabis for medical purposes by 2002. Didn't happen. It's 16 years down the road from this article. 16 years down the road. And still, we are listening to the BS. Oh, it's anecdotal. Yeah, it really doesn't really, you don't really have any kind of thing there. It's just an anecdote. I'll say it again. Every time there's an anecdote coming from one of us around the world, one of the tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people that are so experiencing a wonderful benefit from this fantastic substance, I'm all done listening to some government idiot tell me how exactly. Where did we go here? How come that doesn't how come I'm not Oh, there it is. Okay. How it is. I don't know if you heard me, Shaun, but I don't understand when you have a British Guardian article 16 years
I'm here
old.
now, Alan. I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I was just going to start you off on that Guardian article. I don't know how it is. What is your take? This is Shaun Dillon, folks, from cannabisdaily.co. I want to know what your take is on a 16-year-old article that cites research from 17 years ago saying how healthful and how fantastic this property is for people, no longer anecdotal as of the year 2000, 2001. And here we are in 2018. You still can't get it in England properly. You still can't get it around the world. These facts are available. Everyone out there who researches it and looks into it, such as yourself, knows about it. So from your position as a person involved with cannabisdaily.co, and you're going to tell us all about how that works, but let's just get right to it. Why do you think it is that this healthful substance that's been repeatedly shown to be healthful, or I wouldn't be sitting here right now, why is it in your mind that this stuff is so off the books?
It must be pharmaceuticals, Alan. What are your thoughts? That's what I would say.
You'd say farmers behind it?
Well, governments and farmers, it's all about money, isn't it? It's the whole reason cannabis was made illegal and stigmatized back in the early 30s.
Right. Yeah,
But you're touching on the UK legislation. Everybody knows it there, as you guys do in Canada. Just the CBD market's opening up, however. They're just not allowed any THC, none at all.
None at all. No.
No, but CBD in Europe is abundant. In fact, the supply-demand can't keep up. And obviously, when you look at the States and Canada, obviously there's a lot of growing of the plant there, but you can't get it out. You can't ship CBD freely from America. In fact, I think with the market in the United States and Canada, they're focusing on THC because of the value there, and obviously, your recreational smokers. So with that, the CBD, they're dying to get rid of it. They have it. They're producing it. From my experience of speaking with people over your side of the pond. But here in Europe, it's selling quicker than you can produce. It's that simple. So it does. The value seen with CBD, it's just the drug policy, the war on drugs. It's still classed as a drug. So I think we're going to see that problem for some time.
Now, this is what this is what rocks me earlier. I don't know if you heard this earlier, but I was saying that the governments, and I'm just putting them all on a loose pile there, from the British government, the Canadian, the Australian, everybody in the Western world, pretty much they're all saying, we can't have this stuff involved. We can't have the black market. We can't have these criminals. We shouldn't be doing this at all. This is not a good plan to have this. And then thereby, when they make it illegal, those folks are at it, making money. I mean, how does anybody not see that?
Well, the way I see it, Alan, is that they were made criminals, weren't they? Due to the fact that something which shouldn't be illegal was made illegal. So with that, I'd say that they're just looking at the fact that they're criminals. Even though the laws changed, they're committing a crime. They were committing a crime. I'd suggest that that's what they're pressing on. Maybe I've heard you show many times, and obviously I understand your views on a lot of politicians. They're perhaps looking at them in a sense that they would be criminals regardless. They were doing something that was illegal, albeit, it should not be illegal with what we know, and we've known for many years. I just feel they're looking at it from that point of view. The fact that it was an illegal activity then, you're prepared to break the law. I don't know your thoughts there, Alan.
Well, my thoughts are pretty similar, that the law needs to be broken when it's wrong. And when the law is immoral and the law is incorrect, it is not only not illegal to break that law, it's absolutely necessary for humanity. You just cannot tolerate a fictitiously based law such as, particularly when, if you're telling me that the CBDs are great and they're helpful on the one hand, but on the other hand, they don't want to ship them around and they don't want them moved in and they don't want them brought in. This is all, this is a huge problem for so many people. But before we continue too much longer, let's introduce yourself to the folks listening. CannabisDaily.co.
Cannabis Daily, that's right, yes.
Cannabis Daily. So we'll spell it. It's CANNABIZ or Z for our American listeners. CannabisDaily.co. And what are you guys, besides being an interactive hub for the cannabis industry?
Well, it happened by kind of accident. It was formed by, you have Patsy O'Connor and Vesko Kenishkov. They have a software company here in Bulgaria, and an old friend of Patsy's, who Seamus Russell is the president and CEO. He's been in Vancouver for 10 years now. Both Patsy and Seamus are from Cork, and he suggested our skills would transfer very well into the cannabis space. With the amount of companies cropping up, we provide marketing services, digital services, high-end websites to a lot of companies around the world. So we decided, let's look at there. If there's companies coming up, it's a great angle. So we needed to understand the market. So Patsy brought me in with my experience in marketing and suggested, just find out what's going on. And it just transformed from there. We looked for a gap in the market, which was connecting the cannabis businesses on a global scale because they're cropping up. But as I started to speak with individuals, I pretty much, if they had cannabis to their name on a profile, I tried to get in touch with them. And I've been speaking with so many people, like yourself, Alan. You were told, you have an illness, a severe one, in your instance, cancer. And there's a lot of stories with seizures with kids, told, that there's no value of life, really. The treatment's not working. Yeah. Just kind of deal with it. And I've interviewed so many individuals where cannabis does work. It's a fact. I know with regards to research, we can't come out and say this or that because of freedom and the flexibility. But I've spoken with individuals where it has helped. And the first kind of call I had, I don't know if you've heard of the story, Lindsay Carter, a young boy in Australia, the first
No, tell us about Lindsay.
Okay. I spoke with his mother, Lanai Carter. We actually interviewed her for a platform. So this was kind of the beginning of our realizing that we had to kind of shift what we were doing and look long term and just educate. And not enough people were educating. They were looking for business, focusing on local areas. So when we were speaking with her there, it opened up the doors. Basically, Lindsay is the first THC patient in Australia. And I don't know how much it costs for medication in Canada for seizures, but they have spent tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, I'm sure it's quite similar, yeah.
Yeah, leaving. No, he had to leave the country. Had to go on fundraisers. The mother had to quit her job. I mean, as you can imagine, when it comes to problems like this, when it comes to your child's health, I mean, Lindsay was, in his mid-teens. I'm told, he has a brain tumor. Yeah. So she heard about medical cannabis, spent a fortune in the United States on treatment. He's back there now. And again, they're still facing a problem. This was the one that opened up the eyes to the Australian government and said this works. But now, again, he's in the same position. Seizures have come back because they can't keep up. They've legalized medical cannabis, but he doesn't have access. They've run out. So she's back to raising tens of thousands, which he doesn't have, just to get back to where she can get it. And that's what boggles my mind. That's when I mentioned to Patsy and Seamus, we need to focus on this. Business will happen as it comes. If we focus on this, we have a low burn rate. We can just build a website with huge value and just educate the world. We need to get to decision makers. They need to hear about this.
Absolutely.
And that's just one incident, So
Sure.
That's pretty much where we started to go with this now. We want to educate the world on facts. Because, as you know yourself, looking at cannabis and looking for information, there's plenty of grey areas. We didn't know how to find information, which means if the information isn't out there or easily found, there's a gap in the market. We need to educate. So that's our story so far. We've got obviously a lot in the pipeline, which we can also cover, but I just want to talk about the powers of the plant. The evil plant, as they say, Alan.
The evil plant, yes. So you are the chief marketing officer, is that right?
That's right, yes.
Cannabis Daily. So what kinds of specific functions do you have in that capacity? Obviously, you know very well about these medical cases in different places around the world, but what are you doing? You're just trying to get money together to fund this whole thing?
No, actually, with regards to funding, we have a long-term setup of a software company in Bulgaria. We actually are using a small section of our staff to kind of carry on building Cannabis Daily. I'm going out there pushing for just to build a website up. But with regards to, looking for funding, we're not doing that. Somebody did have a discussion with Seamus not so long back, but they wanted to change the pure vision. When they understand what we're capable of, what we can do with regards to digital software and our access to people within the industry on a business level, on a personal level, they offered us to speed up the process, however, wanted us to not focus so much on the education. So we're just carrying on as we are.
Okay, so tell us a bit about I'm going to cover a couple of these, some of the companies that you've got featured on the front page of the website, the featured businesses, and why you're getting into that. But before we get to that, tell us about the software itself. I mean, that's a big word, software. You can do all kinds of things with it. Apparently not put the show together as well as I'd like with sound audio software. But what kind of software do you have on the go here? How did this get dreamed up?
Well, it tends to be high-end websites, with constant work, constant ongoing. We've got clients we've had for a number of years now outside of the cannabis space. So with regards to that, I know about marketing and obviously the value of websites. The software, I only learned how to spell URL 6 months ago. It's not my thing,
Okay.
The guys behind the scenes deal with that, but we build software for bespoke software, as long as they cover the costs, because we don't look at websites or anything as such, for a few $100s. We look for long-term projects for stability for the staff, and that's kind of the angle we've gone at. But now with regards to what we're doing, we've used perhaps 10%, maybe 20% of our resources to focus on Cannabis Daily. We really do see the long-term for this is incredible. We've actually made an impact in our short time within the industry by getting through to individuals that need to hear of such cases. So it's just a case of, as you know, removing the stigma and educating those that kind of carried that flag, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the things on your some of the featured businesses on your page. Let's go to Grassroots Medicinal. What's up with those folks?
Which one? Sorry.
Grassroots medicinal. Are you
Oh,
familiar?
no, these are yes, with regards to this, I'm looking at it now. What
It's
we've done,
dispensary.
we no, we saw basically as guys within websites, understanding the value of them, how to build them. We looked at just the cannabis industry. Went by Google. We saw the likes of Weed Maps and Leafly. We're very fond of Leafly's work, actually. They're
Yes.
kind of sticking to the core and building up very well. But when we looked at Weed Maps, we noticed everyone was focusing on dispensaries.
Right.
So this was the angle before the education and the news and the interviews was basically, let's connect them. Let's give them a vehicle to speak with each other, find each other. Kind of like Weed Maps, only offering, if you're a cannabis business, whether you're a lawyer, an accountant, regardless of what you're doing, if you want to serve the cannabis industry, we wanted a platform for you to be found, because Google doesn't like cannabis companies promoting themselves still today.
Oh, really? Are they doing algorithmic things to prevent the rise of cannabis-related information sites?
No, it still works. The cannabis keywords, they still work. Usual marketing strategies work. It's just, if anybody really wanted to, proactively put themselves out there and say, we're here for cannabis industry, you can't go and pay them for the quick routes. You
Right.
can't pay Google ads. You can't do these avenues. So it's more a case of who can invest the most into SEO, who can invest the most into content, and whack that up online. But, what about these guys that are really doing something great? It might take them 10 years. They can't rely on Google. So we wanted to put our resources, our time, our knowledge into pushing Cannabis Daily up the ranks. And with that, these companies, these guys have a bit more of a chance to be found.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you for featuring myself, and Leafly has also got a story on me as well for that reason, because similarly, we've had great difficulty here obtaining any kind of backing from a lot of people who are maybe they like listening to the show, but they can't get involved or don't want to get involved financially because of these kinds of bizarre, inconsistent legal strictures that it's like trying to carve your way through a spider web without getting any of it on you.
Yep, that's right. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even more, these guys, who come at you with money and want to put money into ideas and help with, like you say, with people with what you're doing, you never know. It only takes something to change in politics for the whole, everything to be ripped from underneath us.
Yeah.
The money's gone.
The good thing about the money for me is that we had a purveyor earlier on in the show, and they had to back out right away. I was literally filling out the paperwork, and the rest of the team already had, and then he said, "Oh no, we can't really get behind what you're saying there fully." So I understand that's exceptionally difficult, but maybe in a massive chunk of time, 10, 15, 20 years, things will turn around. What I noticed is that these legal changes, they all came around, I think it was 1937. So we've had about 80 years of this nonsense. The last few years have been the slow movement of the wheels turning on the train to get things going in the positive direction again. But it is going to take so long to get everything back to normal, even though this is a relatively brief blip in the history of cannabis access. There's so much work to do.
As I say, looking back, it will be a small piece of time, wouldn't it? But, we're in the middle of it right now, watching what's going on in developments. And, us personally, Cannabis Daily, we're looking at the whole globe. We're looking at what's coming up where, who's doing what. There's a lot of movement, Alan. There really are a lot of things happening. But again, there's people setting up businesses in one place or not. Let's go back to Australia. There's plenty of individuals there with millions of dollars. And if you could imagine Australia for agriculture, I can't see cannabis plants in huge volume being a problem. But if you look at it now, like you say, it's taking its time. They've legalized medical cannabis. They have all of that land, which is, everyone lives on the coast. It's a huge country.
Right. Yeah.
But they can't, they can't keep up with it. So, what's stopping this? There's something that's stopping it there. And it's there. It's prime for the taking. Everybody is ready and set up to make cannabis accessible to the world for medical purposes.
Yeah.
It's just governments that are stopping it. So I guess they're in charge.
Well, I like
as
to
have
ask
always been.
questions. I like to ask questions, and that's how my other show came to be, which you're also listening to right now, by the way. You're on two shows at the same time.
Yep.
This is Conspiracy Queries and Green Crush. One of the questions that I have for these people, and they never have the answer, is that when it's demonstrable that we have so many people that want access to cannabis anyway, then you have the people that are aware that it is medically helping them out or helping out their children, and so they want it. And then we have the science that shows that it's a food on par with trying to get through your life without, say, vitamin C or vitamin D or any other kind of necessary nutrient. And most people want that. I don't hear enough questions being thrown to politicians to say, how do you justify pretending to be representative of an alleged democracy when there is so much will, desire, need, availability for this, and the science and the medication, excuse me, and the science and the research on and anecdotal research and verified research, all of that. How do these people pretend that they are still representatives of an alleged democracy? I don't know how they get away with pretending that they are, and I don't know why more people don't ask that obvious question. I mean, it's basically you're pointing to the strings on the puppet while you say, why do you think you're moving independently?
That's actually what it is. I think that when the questions do come, they're dodging them. I think the overall answer is they're going to have to admit they were wrong. And it's not something politicians are good at, you know?
No.
They'll have to turn around and say, I've been wrong all of this time.
I've been wrong.
I've been lying to you knowingly because it's my job. I mean, that's the only thing I can make sense of this.
It is a lie, though, because it is. That's what I realize is when they said before that this is the devil's drug and it's going to make people do terrible things, and then you find out it isn't, and they say, well, there's no medical application for this at all, and then you find out that there is. And, well, there's not enough people that really want to have this. And then you find out that there is all of these contrary, and then, well, it's not going to, nothing good has ever come from a mind that's partaken of cannabis. And then you listen to art, you listen to music, and you look at art and you read things, and you realize that that's completely untrue. And it just goes on and on and on. And now they're at the place where they say nothing positive can be contributed. And they're virtually, literally, I should say, suppressing a burgeoning economy that's going to be out of control. Can you imagine if you took all the strictures off and just said, okay, the good companies are going to get it done, the bad ones are going to fall off. There's going to be access to this stuff. It's what people want. I mean, this would be such a massive change, and it would be powerful in resurrecting what is constantly being referred to as a limp and sagging economy. And they don't want it to be right. They can't afford to have it also be right, that it's going to help the economy. So there's really no more corners left for them to hide in at this point.
No, you're absolutely right there. There's nowhere for them to hide. So I do feel, in my personal opinion, it's all going to come out. I can foresee, like you said, maybe 10 to 15 years, freedom of movement, cannabis legal. It wouldn't be legal on a global scale. We know there's a few countries out there that would never entertain the idea.
Yeah.
However, that aside, I honestly believe with the information out there now, they're either not looking at it at all and not listening to what's being said, or they've got something in mind. It's just a case of it takes time to reverse. Well, effectively, the war on drugs, because with Richard Nixon, when he declared a war on drugs, cannabis come under that act. You've got to reverse huge decisions by huge characters in history, and who's going to come up and do that? I guess it's just a case of, as politicians do with all subjects, disguise what's going on right now, distract the audience. So they'll be coming up with other areas, and slowly cannabis will be made legal. Because for every activist out there for the pro movement, unfortunately, there's someone against it. That's what the politicians have to consider. It's not the truths, it's the votes.
Yeah.
There's plenty of anti individuals within the industry, regarding the plant.
So I'm going to guess. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say that China is one of the countries that's completely dead set against this across the board.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to
But
guess.
no, well, to my knowledge, because I'm being educated by those I reach, and with regards to China, there's not a lot of individuals out there that you can access. However, I've spoke with a chap named Richard Rose a number of times who fully understands hemp and CBD. He's very clued up on the subject, and he has informed me that regarding hemp production, China are years ahead of the rest.
Oh,
It's just a
really?
case of what.
And what are
Yeah,
they using it for?
I've no idea. It's kind of the language barrier as well. Trying to find people in China. Actually, my usual methods of hunting individuals down, and starting to generate interest in what we're doing and speaking with them. It's getting easier now. People are aware of who we are.
Right.
But going to China, all they try to do is just try to sell me bulk vape pens, so it's straight on the sale.
Right.
They don't, it's the language barrier. They don't understand. We want to find out what's going on. We could also help promote their business and export something into the industry because, they have a product, huge manufacturing. They just go straight for sale. They just found someone in the industry who may buy my product in bulk. So we're struggling for the answers there. So if anyone's listening and could help with that, we're wide open to speak.
Okay, well, I hope I can learn more about this because I think I have some kind of an internet firewall up about China the same way they have one. I didn't really know as much about China, so let's take a glance around the world right now. What is your take on Mexico right now? What's going on in Mexico? There's a lot of changes going on in Mexico regarding what we were told before was that the cannabis industry helps the illegal purveyors of other substances and helps them create a bottom line and a business to hide in, and it actually pays for a lot of illicit activity in Mexico. But that's from before, and now some laws are changing. What can you tell us about that part of the North American Union?
Only as much as you know so far. We know what we've researched and written an article with regards to the changes that are pending, because our mantra is we don't want to join in with the guys miseducating. When we find something tangible,
right,
we look there. And again, if anyone in Mexico speaks to Cannabis Daily about what's going on, it's one of those smaller areas where we can't get into. Particularly again, if you have a reach in Uruguay, because it's fully legal there. It's probably the most advanced country in the world with regards to cannabis legislation and freedom and access.
Uruguay,
yes,
well,
everything is legal. There's nothing illegal with regards to cannabis now. I believe the only area is if you're a tourist, you can't purchase cannabis. But other than that, you can be sitting on tons in your back room. As long as you didn't steal it and there's not a call to the police that you've stolen it, it's fine.
So they're busting tourists with it, though. They're arresting.
No, they're not busting tourists. I think the policy, to my knowledge, is not to sell to tourists.
Ah, okay.
If somebody goes looking, I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But again, that's something that's been at the forefront of our mind because of how far ahead they are. Just
right.
Again, it's reaching people with the language barriers, or even more, just how much, whether they're online or you can find them. Again, the problems we're having in China. It's just a case of facts. We can't get to people on the ground in Uruguay and Mexico as of yet, but we're heavily involved and focusing on Europe currently and watching the CBD developments there.
It's well worth watching in these countries that can grow so much. I mean, you've got all kinds of sunshine down there. You could do
it's South Africa. They're now going to be heavily involved in production and export. As you can imagine, the climate there, and with regards to how it is, they're set in their ways. They've been working in cannabis. I've spoken with a few individuals down there. They've been working in cannabis for many years, even when it was illegal.
Sure.
And it's a bit like the Wild West. So they've even suggested if they don't get given a license, as long as they can afford a top lawyer, they can carry on and just do what they do. So it's an interesting time there, but it's definitely going to have huge developments. Again, with Australia, I can foresee, I guess, ease of production and growth. They're going to see huge volume of cannabis in those countries. But the leaders could perhaps, I keep reading reports from Israel. I don't know if you know much about the Israeli movement in cannabis.
Yeah.
But they said they're going to be the leading exporters of cannabis. I think for climate and size, South Africa and Australia could certainly facilitate more growth. However, they know how to run business, don't they? Once they have an idea, they run with it. They deliver. So I can foresee that being a possibility.
Okay. Well, it's kind of late for you. It's you're in Bulgaria right now, many hours ahead of us. So give us I'm going to ask you quickly about a couple of other regions of the world that we don't hear too much about here, and to get your take on it. You're much closer to them and wired into your business. Tell us a little bit about Scandinavia and also Russia. Anything newsworthy there?
I believe Norway has a strict medical cannabis policy. It's legal for medical cannabis in Norway, but it's very strict. I may have to get my facts straight on that. Russia, with regards to that, I can't see many changes there. There have been stories coming out, but it's all external. There's nobody in Russia saying this is a fact. Okay. I read contradicting articles. Some say it's legal for medical purposes, and I've spoken with individuals that say you can't touch cannabis in Russia at all. Don't be mad.
Wow.
So that's what we want to do. We want to get to people on the ground to educate in these areas rather than.
The question I would put to any Russian official or user or someone knowledgeable in Russia is that okay, it's illegal, don't be mad or what have you, but they have a big problem there with this substance called crocodile. Have you heard about this? Crocodile?
No, it's new to me.
It's new to you? Oh my gosh. Well, as long as you're not enjoying a meal right now while you listen to this show, get on Google and look up crocodile Russia, and you spell it Krokidil, crocodile. And this is a substance that people, junkies, I'm going to say the disadvantaged instead of losers, but these folks, they take very easy to obtain substances from the store, such as Drano and bleach and a few other things. And they create this very smelly, very toxic injectable drug, which then rots away their skin and their flesh. And this is where it gets the name crocodile. It literally hardens and causes the flesh and the skin to drop off. And for bones to become exposed. It is one of the most horrendous things I've ever seen anywhere. And the reason I'm asking about cannabis is seems to be an exclusively Russian problem. And what I found out about cannabis regarding opioids is if you in all the states where they take cannabis or have access to cannabis in the States, you've got a 25 to 30% drop in the opioid addiction problem. And the big problem with crocodile, if you can believe it or not, is that it's addictive. This horrible thing that these mostly young men are doing. And I think it's worth taking a look at anytime there's a medical application for cannabis is to try to get this stuff to those people and see if access to cannabis amongst the crocodile users in Russia would help turn them around, and under a supervised program. So if you didn't know about crocodile, and when you find out about it, you'll never forget about it. I guarantee that. So did we lose Shaun?
Oh, no, I'm here. Sorry, I was waiting for you to just bring me back in because I was looking at the images there.
Yeah, actually. It's pretty horrible. Yeah, I thought you might have been looking at pictures and just about ready to throw up. It's so horrifying.
No, it's isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just thought you might know about that. And I think the cannabis would be a good application. I mean, when it's therapeutically... Go ahead.
I was saying, wouldn't it just be perfect to legalize in a country like that,
Yeah.
Certainly to prevent such cases. However, when you look at something like that, let's go back to how cannabis is, in the olden days.
Okay.
I I'm sure they have access to cannabis. I'm sure they can pick up cannabis from plenty of men on the bikes, popping around the house as they were back in the 90s when I was younger.
Yeah.
I don't know whether there may just be a problem there where they would still do something like that, but I see that something like that needs to be removed from the streets and give people more access to cannabis. But that's just horrific images, huh?
Yeah, they're horrible stuff. Don't look at that while you're eating, anybody. Okay, so as far as Cannabis Daily is concerned, tell us how you are. Well, you're a burgeoning empire. So how are you connecting people in the cannabis industry? Like, I'm speaking with you now. We've had an email thread going on back and forth for a while. And how do you best go after people? Do you just sit there and scan around on Google and try to make connections, or how do you do it?
Yeah, it's basically using social media forums to find people, because what we want to do is raise awareness of our marketplace, which is in production. That's going to be added to the site. We're currently raising awareness of that. So in the meantime, I've started to just make it aware to individuals. I'm speaking to somebody with regards to one subject in the industry, and they mentioned to me, oh, by the way, do you know where I could perhaps pick up CBD isolate, within this state? And I look at it, it's legal. I say, well, do you know what? I'll ask someone for you.
Right.
And that's kept on happening now. People are coming to me daily. My inbox is always full every morning with regards to inquiries. How can you help me out? Because they know that a marketplace is pending. So I'm dealing with stuff like this verbally currently, just to keep the interest there. So when the marketplace is there, I can direct them there. That's part of the connecting the cannabis businesses.
Okay, well, at the risk of further cramming your inbox full of questions and needs, tell the listeners how it is they can get a hold of you and anybody else in your business who can get information from where they're about. Like, how do people reach you and people?
They can email me directly, Shaun at cannabisdaily.co.
Okay, that's SHAUN. Okay. Making sure
at Cannabis Daily, yeah. Obviously, you got it across to the listeners. Cannabis with a Z or Z for the Americans, daily.co.
Great. And what is CO for? What does that mean?
It's just the domain name we picked up. We wanted to look globally, but somebody got in there with .com, and we can't find them. There's no website, but we went with .co because obviously the rest are regional.
Well, I hope to get a chance to meet you sometime, and I say that to everybody basically that I've ever spoken to on the show, because this is great information. It's amazing to me that you guys have you've got an article up. I've got something here. I'm just going to read it quickly. The most widely reported medical cannabis refugee group are parents with epileptic children, more specifically children suffering from Dravet syndrome, a severe form of epilepsy causing more than 20 seizures a day. And, of course, last week we had on Ava, Barry's mother, Vera Toomey from Ireland, who I'm sure you're familiar with. And she has...
Very familiar.
Yeah, very familiar. And she's done a hell of a job getting it pushed through and forced through into Ireland. But when she told me that her daughter is only one of 4. Now, maybe there's another one this week. Maybe it's one of 5 by now. But last week, they were one of 4 legal recipients of this legal access that is afforded to 4 people in Ireland. That's just incredible to me. That, it works for this person, but nobody else can have it. So.
Well, that's what it takes. It takes a mother with a sick child and turning to cannabis. If anyone's going to, wake up a politician and be very proactive, it's a parent for treatment for their children. And it's actually sad and unfortunate that we have to wait for this stage for things to pick up. But Patsy and Seamus are both from Cork, not too far from Vera Toomey. And we've been watching developments in Ireland. They've started the process. It's just a matter of time. But again, we don't know. Could it be 6 months? Could it be 6 years? It's down to the politicians.
It is, but such a good moment, right? I mean, weren't you just so happy when they got to come home in December and
Of course.
experience Christmas together and all of that?
Well, was it the Netherlands they were in for treatment, flying over? They moved there, didn't they, and come
Yeah,
back recently?
yeah. She was
Yeah.
also in Spain for a while too, but they were in the Netherlands. Yeah, getting it done there. Amazing. So
No, it
speaking of
is.
6 months or a year from now, where do you see Cannabis Daily? .co becoming what's going for you? What's going to be the thing in the long term?
Well, we aim to be a top 10 cannabis brand name, a business brand. But we do have a convention. We have a location. We just don't want to jump on it yet, but we want to focus global. So we're going to pick up a convention outside of the United States and Canada and hopefully bring all of the business minds there. We want to try and find the movers and shakers, take them somewhere where we do feel is going to be one of the leaders of cannabis production in the world, and bring everyone on board. Come down and do the usual convention stuff. Have some guest speakers.
Right.
We'll have people setting up booths, showcasing their business, and obviously then bit of leisure time in the evenings in a brand new country, because the only difficulty we see here is getting Americans to leave the United States,
Most of them don't have passports. So
That's right, huh?
So how do you, when you get to that level, when you're at this place, tell us who is, I was wrong about China. They've got all kinds of production going on there. I was just going on a hunch because they're so restrictive with their information. But who is just going to be probably the most difficult country to bring along into the fold? I mean, everybody else is halfway in the door. They've got their foot, one in the boat and one on the dock. Who is going to be the big problematic country? Give us that, and also who's going to be who's going to really turn things around? Seems like Ireland has a chance to go from last place to first place.
Now. Well, Ireland have been talking about it, so it's going to happen. But I'd say go back to Russia then, because we know who's in charge there, and we know who's going to be in charge for many years. So if it's not legal now, and as long as Putin's in charge, and he has his policies. If he was gonna change it and legalize it, he would have done so already. So I'd say that's going to be the most difficult purely on that basis, because, like you say, he's there for the long term.
But I see him toking, though. I totally see Vladimir. But when he's on the back of a horse with his shirt off, he's got a bong somewhere. It's in the saddlebag, I'm sure.
Well, man can do what he wants, can't he? To be honest, he does put it off. He does look a pretty cool guy, sitting on the top of. He's in good shape, huh?
He's in relatively good shape. I figure he has a hoot once in a while. I think so. Yeah,
I'd say so.
Well, Shaun, I'm glad that you came on the show, and I wonder if there's anything else you want to tell people about what to look for from you guys, and otherwise, we will have you back on in a little bit. We'll see how the plans are going. See if we're still moving forward, or if anybody's
we'd love to get Seamus on next time, in the future, because it's a fresh story. He's the man on the ground in Vancouver.
Right.
He's the president, so he'll have much more and fresh information to say. But what I'd like to say to anyone is, come to me. That's what we're here for. If we don't want to, our business model is being formed by the people within the community. So come to me or come to Patsy. We're the ones very active on speaking with people, and from there on in, we make stuff happen. So if you want to email myself at cannabisdaily.co or Patsy at cannabisdaily.co, if you have something to say, if you need assistance, put the email out there, and we'll facilitate if we can. Just don't ask us for anything illegal.
No. But you're a caring facility, and you're growing, and it's all about a very large facet, folks. I don't know where you're listening to us from in the world, but this is a huge venture. I don't just mean Cannabis Daily. I mean everything about cannabis. This is a turning point in history. We're turning back into being able to access one of the most healthful products, plants, substances on the planet. And if you are in some kind of an illness, and it doesn't necessarily need to be cancer or Dravet's, it could be all kinds of things, it's definitely worth a try. And it's definitely worth a try if you've been told that your medications have not been doing anything, or that there isn't any medical application for you. What is holding you back from trying? and the folks at CannabisDaily.co are going to help you understand how you can access that stuff and what you can expect based on where you are in the world, physically, mentally, spiritually, the whole thing. So a great organization is coming forth. And what's great about it, to me, is that this product, this substance, this plant is what dreamed you guys into existence. I mean, I'm here because of it. You're here because of it.
Absolutely.
Maybe if it were legal the whole time and they didn't put this wall up 80 years ago, you'd be doing something else. Maybe you'd be fixing race car engines or something. I don't know. But this whole repression of this and the prevention of access has created folks like yourself and organizations such as Cannabis Daily. So I think it's amazing that it's jujitsu, isn't it? I mean, as soon as you throw a punch my way, I take that same energy and put it right back to you. That's what the lawmakers and these legislators are experiencing now.
Absolutely, and everyone's coming at them with full force. Education and facts.
Yeah.
If we put them out there, they've nowhere to hide. As we've discussed, they can't dodge them now. They've been dodging them too long. If we swamp them with it, turn heads, and hopefully we've played our part in the movement.
Well, I think you have, and thanks for doing that. Those folks are definitely running out of corners. And, Shaun, we will have you back. We'll have the president on, too, and we will definitely feature you guys on the show again in the future. Thanks for writing up a little something about me in the show. Really appreciate it.
No, you're absolutely welcome. It's a story we wanted to put out there.
Well,
and we're certainly looking forward to being back on next time, then.
Yeah, take care. Have a great night in, what are you, in Sofia?